welcome everybody to the governance event on loyalty rewards, the community meeting on, where we will discuss the phase 2 pool allocation. It's January 26th right now, and we're joined by Brian Crandano, Eric, Pingsha, Rainer, and Jan. And yeah, today we'll have a discussion on an initial discussion, I should say, on how these loyalty rewards can be allocated. I made some slides, and yeah, that gives some structure to the meeting. Let's dive right in, I would say. So for a bit of background, the loyalty rewards pool is part of the phase 2 plan, and it concerns 5% of these phase 2 tokens. And right now, the year 1 allocation of these tokens is underway already. And it includes a requirement of being part of the hard fork snapshot from AGI to AGIX back in May 2021. And basically what this whole governance event is about the years 2 and onward allocations. That's basically the community decides what happens there. I'll quickly, don't worry, I won't read out the full blog post. But just for a bit of context, this is the. Can you see my screen? I assume so. Yeah, looks good. A snippet taken from the phase 2 proposal basically outlines this 5% allocation of the monthly tranches. It will be allotted to phase 1 AGI token holders. And the last sentence is the reason why we're here today. The utilization of the loyalty reward token pool after the first year may be changed via democratic vote of token holders, being us. And yeah, the schedule will go into that a bit later. Basically, it touches on. I'm not going to read out the full blog post. It will be linked in the description below. And yeah, the relevant stuff will be part of the slides anyway. So I'm going to hop back to the slides. And I'd like to get started with a short video contribution by David Orban. David is the chairman of the SingularityNET Supervisory Council, and he would have liked to join this meeting, however he's flying right now, so that was not quite optimal, let's say, but he made a video contribution, and which I'll play now.
My name is David Orban, and I am the chairman of the supervisory board of SingularityNET. I wish I could be there with you in this exciting meeting, but I am flying at this time, and the participation wouldn't be possible. Improving the governance and the organization for human groups in order to better decide how to allocate tasks, resources, is one of the most interesting and important challenges that we have. Governance is a technology, and it is ripe for disruption. The hierarchical and centralized structures that we have known in corporations, but even at the level of countries, is an organization that we believe works very well because we have not been able to find suitable, scalable, reliable alternatives. One of the promises of blockchain technologies is to bring forth an alternative that we call today DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. Together with the members of the team that helped in analyzing and writing it, we published a report about DAOs recently, and it is now time to further make decisions about how should SingularityNET fulfill its mission of becoming a full-fledged DAO. Of course, the traditional way of participating in a DAO that consists in voting according to a certain token held in a wallet may not be a sufficient solution to fully realize the ambitions of the vision behind SingularityNET. What more is needed? Is reputation, for example, a component, a variable that should be taken into account? How should reputation be calculated? How can reputation be also a parameter, a quantity that is as appropriately associated with an individual as a wallet, or even more closely, but at the same time portable and interoperable? These and many other questions, of course, will be part of your discussions. And I am really looking forward to see what you generate, and I will be eagerly reading what is going to be shared and published, as well as hopefully I will be able to participate in future meetings in person, so that my contributions are synchronous in the heat of the discussion, as the important topic deserves. Good luck for your efforts, and I'm looking forward to interacting with all of you.
There we go. I hope that was that the audio was somewhat okay on that contribution. Was it understandable? If not for the video, we might need to splice it in. We'll see. But did you guys understand what he was saying?
Yeah, the
yes.
audio was all good.
All right, great stuff. Then let's go to the next. Yeah, I wanted to quickly go over the outline of this process. Right now we're in the second step of the schedule. The ideation portal is open for proposals, and in this schedule, the third bullet point is the closing of the ideation portal on January 30th, and I'm somewhat thinking it wouldn't hurt to leave it open a bit longer. This is yeah, right now there's 6 proposals, which we'll check in a bit. Yeah, I don't think it hurts to like, if you look at the schedule, there's quite a long period from January 30th up to February 13th for where the ideation portal is closed, but we can still fine-tune and discuss the proposals on there. And the voting portal, actually, it shifted from the initial schedule to be in sync with the deep funding round 2 vote. So that created, like, between the 13th and the 20th, it now creates a week of, yeah, like a lull period. So I feel it would make sense to perhaps extend the ideation portal being open by 1 week. Yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. If anybody has any big arguments against that, do let me know. Then I wanted to, also as a bit of a starting point of further discussions, put a reminder on the goals of this loyalty pool and what it's intended to do. And this is based on the phase 2 proposal, and I'll quickly summarize. It's basically to incentivize participation in the phase 2 network. So practically speaking, getting people over to the Cardano side. Second is to strengthen the utility token, so increasing stuff like total value locked and liquidity for platform users. And generally speaking, growing the community through ongoing incentives to loyal AGIX holders. And yeah, that's something to keep in mind as a backdrop of the discussions. Then I was planning right now to go over the current sway proposals, but I'll do a quick check if anybody wants to has some initial questions right now or wants to contribute something.
Okay, maybe just a question. Is there some basic proposal from the team, or this is all from the community? And also, if at the end, when we will vote, there one of all proposals will be really voted and used for this. Thank
you. Yeah, thanks. Good questions. On the first one, it's relatively straightforward answer. There's currently no proposal coming from foundation side. I did make an example proposal. Yeah, I guess I'll touch on that when going through them. But no, there's no foundation proposal as such. And on the voting procedure, basically, we're adopting the model that basically that Jan introduced for deep funding. What we'll do during the current phase is collect the proposals and then make a selection out of it. So the most the proposals with the highest rating on the ideation portal, those will be selected to be put onto the actual voting portal, just to make sure we don't, like end up voting on 30 proposals, or if there's overlapping concepts between the proposals, then it doesn't make sense to have them all out for voting. So there will be a selection, and that will not just be me thinking like, oh, I like this one better. There will be like a public meeting where this is selected. I hope that answers.
I can add to that if you like, about the process we had in around deep funding. We didn't actually precisely use the rating for it. We used the rating as one input and all the feedback we got as an input. And then we discussed it with the governance group, just like we're doing here now. And then in that discussion, we landed on ultimately on a few proposals that were valid for voting. Precisely for the reasons that Peter mentioned, that we want to avoid overlap and also make sure that what we are putting up for proposals is aligned with the rules that we set out. There were a few rules, and is actually feasible to make.
Thank you. Pingsha, is that more or less clear?
Yeah, thank you. It's all clear.
All right. Yeah, I put it on the sheet as well. We have 6 proposals so far, and yeah, as I mentioned, I'm tempted to keep the portal open for an additional week, simply to gather more input. I'll go to Sway right now. Have a look at the actual proposals. Seeing this slot is reserved for 1 hour total, and we're about 20 minutes in now. I won't be like taking 15 minutes for every proposal to completely discuss in all detail, but I do think it's nice to simply touch on them. Well, since it's an example proposal, I'll start with this one. I made it myself. Disclaimer. Basically, was simply to introduce what a proposal more or less would look like. And the idea here of this proposal was to make an eligibility snapshot, to have that being a rolling one. So let's say there's monthly allocations, and then every month you can take a look at a snapshot from exactly 1 year back of that current date, and use that as an eligibility snapshot. It's mostly an example, so I don't feel super strongly about this. At the same time, I do see some benefits, as it would open the door to new community members who are not perhaps part of the hard fork snapshot, to be included in the loyalty rewards. Yeah, I think for an initial touching on it, that already covers. Then let's see. I'll go through them by submission date. And there was a proposal by Mark Faraday, and his proposal, basically, as the title aptly summarizes, is to use this loyalty pool and shift it to be included as AGAX staking rewards on Cardano. Pretty straightforward. As he points out, it would solve the problem of new community members not being able to benefit from the loyalty rewards. And it also takes into account like the participation into the phase 2 network. Additionally, as he points out, more staking rewards mean likely that more people will be incentivized to stake and increase the total value locked in the staking. And in relation to the third goal, he mentions the increased rewards will basically attract more people to the token and to the community. For practical reasons, I'm not entirely sure if it makes sense to go through all the comments that were put out there. That's quite a lengthy discussion. And let's not spend the full remainder of this session to reading through those. You can all, on the portal, read and contribute to the discussions. Then a third proposal is basically to allocate all the loyalty rewards to the ambassador program. And I'm not completely unbiased there. I like the ambassador program a lot. Basically, and I did not propose this one, just for clarity there. Yeah, basically the whole idea is to have more rewards available for the ambassador program. And with its mission of spreading the word on SingularityNET, this benefits the whole ecosystem. That would be like the very short summary. He did include a little note that the proposal was done by ChatGPT after describing the ambassador program and the loyalty rewards. So that's pretty cool. He says on implementation, it's pretty straightforward. Simply allocate it to the ambassador program, which I agree is very simple. No special designs required there. As you can see, there's quite some pros and cons, and quite on both sides of the argument. There's quite some good arguments there. One of a neutral suggestion is to perhaps create a portion of the loyalty rewards and allocate that, which in itself is an interesting approach. Like it's being used as one pool right now, but theoretically it can be split up into multiple allocations. I think that covers this one for now. Then the fourth one, it's by Richard Kippen. And basically, the broad outline here would be that to make sure that if a token holder, for whatever reason, deceases, that his family and kids would have some way of making sure the loyalty rewards are still getting to them instead of to the, well, now deceased person. It's a pretty interesting concept in general. Let's put it like that. The whole what happens to your crypto wallet, yeah, if you die. There are solutions to this, and I personally feel like if that's the situation, then this loyalty rewards allocation might be a bit small portion of the problem. He does also argue for extending the availability of the allocations to 5 years instead of the current 3 years. So that's for sure, it's a parameter we can, in this community ideation and governance events, we can play with, and we can have a vote on what makes sense. And then there is another, which is an intriguing title: Loyalty Rewards to the Loyalty Holders. With the basic idea of this proposal being those who support the project the longest should have the greatest awards. This proposal also includes, as one of the suggestions earlier, to make a separate allocation within the rewards pool. Basically reserving, creating a sub pool for everybody in this proposal who has tokens since 3 months, and the rest, the remaining 70%, would go towards the people that were part of the hard fork snapshot. So this is also creating like a subcategory with different rules, conditions. And as he notes out, it's always good to honor those who supported you the longest. Exactly, this is called loyalty. And then the last one for now. Which is proposed by Jan. And if you don't mind me calling you out, Jan, perhaps you can give a quick summary of this proposal.
Sure. The idea behind this is that we want to reward loyal holders, loyal community members. That's the idea. If we decide on a very simple metric, like everybody who was will get rewarded based on their amount during the hard fork, then you won't need this. If we would land on a more complex way to measure loyalty, and we would like to have that evolve over time, then it would help to have a tool. And you could have a tool that would measure, for instance, on different metrics, like how old is your wallet, when was the first transaction done in AGI or AGIX, what is your holding versus trading behavior. You can make that as complex or simple as you want. Also things like what is your voting behavior, do you often vote or not, and you can even make that more complex. For instance, in deep funding we have grade voting, and you could apply an algorithm based on desired voting behavior, and that would be not all 1s and 110 but more nuanced behavior. And then at some point you could even add other metrics like loyalty can also be shown by being in meetings like this one, or by giving contributions to a deep funding portal, giving feedback on proposals, or in the future we'll have other things where you will be able to contribute and use all that to calculate a loyalty score. And based on that, if we have that score, we could use that to distribute the tokens that are still there relative to the score of each wallet. We could also, and that's where it really becomes interesting, we could also use that loyalty score to give you extra weight in all kinds of voting decisions. So then it will also give back more voting power. So that way it can become, if we would make a tool like that, and we can start out relatively simple and then build it out more complex later on, it can become an important tool for our community. And if we do it properly, it could become an important tool for the wider ecosystem and not just for SingularityNET. So as a downside to this is that building such a tool will take some budget. So it will take some budget away from the amount that we would like to distribute. On the other hand, I can also see options to create some budget with it. For instance, I would love to see a proposal coming into deep funding based on this in the next round, where maybe here we can make a start, but then in the next round of deep funding you can integrate it in the deep funding process already and make it a little bit more elaborate. I can also imagine doing the same in Cardano Catalyst and then saying we'll make it more generic so that also people from Cardano, and also the Cardano community could measure loyalty based on people having ADA in their wallet and how they are using it. And finally, you could imagine, if you would want to go, so you could do this more like an open source tool that would support the community, which I would personally think would be great. But if you want, you could also put it out with a license and even earn some money in the long term, which can then be distributed again over the loyal holders. So there are all kinds of opportunities. But the basic conception here is that loyalty is something which is harder to measure than just saying who had most tokens at this point in time. And if you want to measure that properly, but also measure it with trust, and not some guy doing that in an Excel sheet behind his desk, then you would need to have a tool that can properly do that you can trust, and that is error-free. And you could have an ongoing discussion on that. So we could start simple, and every year or half year or whatever, you could tweak it a little bit and you could add additional attributes, thinking about what does loyalty mean for us, also at this stage in our lifetime, in the lifetime of our project. I think that sort of summarizes it.
It does. Awesome. Thank you. Any thoughts on the proposals that are currently on the portal? Very broad question, but
yeah, I think this last one was very good.
Yeah, so maybe one additional question. Will there be only one voting for all rewards from year 2 and on, or there will be additional votings later? Because if there will be only one, I'm not sure how there could also be vote for, I mean, respecting also this tool, which would be developed maybe only later. But yeah, otherwise a very good proposal, I would say, from him.
Thank you.
I think it's a great question. In a way, to me, since the whole origin of this governance event is to allow community feedback on the process, to me it makes perfect sense, personally, to whatever we vote on, to have a review after, let's say, a year, perhaps 2 years. But this would be something that could be an outcome of this community governance. Yeah, in a way, we didn't want to lock in for 91 years for the full duration of the phase 2 proposal. But then after 1 year to then lock in for 90 years doesn't feel optimal. So I would estimate there's more votes coming. And then, yeah, ideally, or in the best case scenario, let's say, I can imagine that over time, you end up closer and closer to, yeah, a very good solution. And then perhaps you don't need a yearly review, but it can shift, like the first 1 year, 1 year, 2 year, 2 year, 5 year. There's something to that would make sense to me. But this is currently undecided. All right. Yeah, basically, there's plenty of room for open discussion. There's some possible considerations I lined out on the sheet, which we can touch on. But if anybody has some broader observations or considerations, feel free to chime in.
A question for Jan, and it was very interesting to listen about different ways of measuring loyalty. Could you perhaps explore that a little further?
Yeah, so I think when we go in this direction, this is also something that needs governance and collaboration. I don't think this will be a journey, right? So at first, a very simple thing we could do is we will measure so the simplest thing we can do is just say we'll measure the age of the wallet. So when was AGI or AGIX first transacted with this wallet? Is it half a year ago, 3 days ago, or 3 years ago? I've been thinking about that in the context of deep funding. For instance, to mitigate against people doing wallet splitting if we are going for quadratic voting. So quadratic voting, for those who are not aware of that, means that you take the square root of the balance of a wallet, meaning that the higher your balance, the less it will, every AGIX will count for you, basically. So that way we'll even up the playing field a little bit more and avoid that a few very big wallets will take all the voting power, or 90% of the voting power. But a bad actor could mitigate that by splitting his wallets into a large number of small wallets. But then if we see that this action would have been done, that a small wallet would have a history of only a month or 2 months or whatever, then we can still make it count, but we will say it will have a small weight. And if a wallet has been with us with a substantial amount for 4 years or longer, then we can say, well, this is definitely somebody who is involved and engaged with our community, and we'll give him a higher voting reward. So that would be the easiest part. A little bit harder already would be what signifies holding. So are we looking at the average? Are we looking at the lowest amount? Are we looking at intervals in which people have lower or higher amounts. That can become quite a complex algorithm already. But I'm sure we can figure out a way. We have a lot of smart people in our organization to think of something what signifies holding and add a gradient to that. So people who are more consistently holding a large amount would get a higher rating than people who go up and down and sell and buy and sell and buy. And of course, I think the most important part here is to filter out the extremes. And that should be doable in any case. If I look at it from the perspective from deep funding, in deep funding you have the option to vote on a number of projects with a grade varying from 1 to 10. And in the first round of deep funding we saw a number of people voting 9 ones and 1 10. And that means that they seem to be biased for one product and really aiming for one product. And usually it won't be the case that 10 products really are valued 1. So we would like to reward people who vote in a more nuanced way and actually think about what is the value of this project and not do it in a more political way like 1 10 and 9 ones. So that's another metric. But we've also been discussing, I know in the ambassador program with that gym balls thing, it would be possible to have a score on what people are contributing in another way to the ecosystem. So at some point, and maybe not at the first stage, but maybe at the third or the fourth iteration of such a tool, you could also add that into the wallet, because that is everything that is identifiable by a wallet. You could give some kind of score, and that way. And that is a discussion, an ongoing discussion. That is the journey that I'm talking about, to discuss continuously. Is this appropriate? What do we value? And what do we think is important for our ecosystem? And that will ensure that the wallets that are most are contributing most to our ecosystem will therefore also benefit the most, benefit in terms of voting weights and benefit in terms of getting also feedback. Because, and that makes sense, right? If you do put a lot of effort in it and you do evaluate things properly and you are in meetings like this, I think that's proper that you also get a bigger share of, in this case, the loyalty rewards. And we would also factor in the same. So if we would have a system like this that creates a wallet loyalty, we would also factor that into the reputation score of deep funding. So if there is our rewards distributed in deep funding over the community that contributes to, for instance, on our portal, on our proposal portal, that would also factor in your reputation weight, also giving more of that reputation incentive that we're rewarding there. So I think all of this can connect together and create a dynamic, lively community where positive behavior is rewarded both in voting power and in AGIX incentives. And in the end, that should make our whole community stronger, of which everybody will benefit. Also token holders that are not that active themselves, but more in an indirect way. I can probably continue for 10 minutes longer, but I'm not sure that is needed.
Well, no, not initially, I don't think. We do have 14 more minutes on this session. I do want to put a little remark there that, in a way, to me, I'm not convinced yet that it touches on what the sheet mentions, like how to define loyalty. I'm not convinced that loyalty equals reputation, let's say, or participation. I'm not entirely sure that for this specific pool, the participation should be a factor. Like I think holding behavior makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's a valid thing. So the question is also, what do you rate where? We have a reputation system, or actually there's now a proposal being made, which I was involved in, which is creating a contribution score. And I do agree that you also shouldn't give double points, right? Give it on the wallet reputation and on your contribution score. You should determine what is rated where and how you balance all of that. So in that dashboard we can make a score, and yes, that is exactly the kind of discussion that we should have together, not once, but I think ongoingly, because maybe we will rate loyalty in a year different than today, because also the ecosystem will have changed, and maybe we will become more decentralized in a year or in 2 years. And having a tool that is configurable allows you to have that discussion, and then to add a parameter that will create a proper rating. And yeah, I'm totally open to that. I think it's a valid remark. What attributes, what metrics you will and will not put into that, and that in itself is a valuable discussion.
Maybe we can have some additional contributions to that discussion by others, if anybody feels inclined.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Hey, how's it going? I'm a pretty big fan of this project. I did have a couple questions. On the Ethereum blockchain, I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's called OHM. It's a DAO. It didn't do so well, but they tried solving the I guess like a stablecoin process with a treasury, and a bunch of people basically voted. So I'm curious with the quadratic voting system and everything, will it decentivize, let's say, retail market and bull markets? The retail customer, when they get into this and they want to participate, does it basically flesh out the people when it goes back to a bear market to stay in the system? Because like you said, you want reputation and long-term holdings to have a better voting system. Is that basically what happens in a quadratic system over time? It kind of fleshes out the people who are not true believers in the project. And I guess the other question I have is, how do you execute, if there's a vote on the DAO or the SingularityNET or the system on, hey, we want to do this next, who executes that command?
You want first, Peter? I can address that quadratic voting question. I don't think it will influence holding behavior. What will influence holding behavior is giving people a reputation score that is based on their holding behavior. So if you sell and buy and sell and buy, or if you have nothing and then just prior to a vote or something you suddenly buy, then we could factor that in negatively in your reputation score. So that would incentivize people to keep a wallet with a proper amount, for instance. What the quadratic voting does is what you see. What I saw in the first round of deep funding, but sorry for all these signals. What I also saw in a lot of other projects, we did some study on that, and you see that in many cases, which is actually quite scary if you start to think about it, is that very often there are a handful of whales that have such a large amount of tokens that if they should actively put those votes to work, they can determine everything. And a mitigation against that is to make sure that the higher your balance is, the less it will count for you. So that will even out the whole playing field and make everybody a little bit more equal. Not totally equal, but a little bit more equal than it was before that. So I think there is merit in saying that people with a large amount of tokens should have a higher voting weight than people with a smaller amount. But not into the extremes, that a few whales could change everything. And Esther, our colleague, did some research into that. And also in very well-known Ethereum-based projects, this is actually the case. Sometimes these whales don't vote at all. And then it's not an actual problem. But it could very easily become a problem if they would start voting and would start voting in a way that only serves their own purposes and not that of the general audience. So that is the reason for quadratic voting. In case of loyalty rewards and royalty rating, we would reward basically the idea is that you can reward the kind of behavior that you would like to see. And if that behavior is holding, then you can give a rating to people who just hold. If it's accumulating, then you could give extra reward for people who accumulate over time, for instance. And if it's the act of voting, being an active member of the community, you could also reward that.
I'll take that as a nice bridge to the second question on implementation of votes. Basically, right now there's no set out DAO structure within SingularityNET, and I think you weren't on the beginning of the call during the contribution of David Orban of the Supervisory Council. It will be part of the recording, so you can see that. He outlines basically it's all about small steps, working towards becoming a full DAO, and processes like this, community governance, that's all part of it. But right now, it's too early in the process. There's no DAO structure right now to concretely answer your question on how it's implemented. There's these type of meetings, and there's the ideation portal. And then we collect proposals, those get put to vote, and the winning votes, the winning proposals get implemented. That's the current procedure.
Awesome. I guess one more question to add on top of that, which is, oh, sorry, someone else talking, or no? Oh, I thought someone else talking. Sorry. I guess the other question I had with the voting system, I noticed as well, which was really interesting. I wonder how quadratic voting works with this. I noticed that there was almost like a class system within the voting, and there was a bias system obviously as well. And it was overwhelmingly, like everything would be like 95% voted yes or no. It was really weird because in a democratic process, you don't typically have that. But I thought that was interesting. But I thought what was interesting is that I noticed a trend where a lot of people who were whales and people who had even middle, I guess you could say like middle class whales, started making a lot of these votes on the system that anyone who has less than cannot vote, or basically bring a proposal to everyone. I don't know if you guys thought about this or clarified this before. I'm just curious, how could that be worked in a quadratic system?
I think I can answer that. Basically, right now we don't for submitting proposals. There's no tokens required. Even you don't need to be a token holder. For actual voting, I believe for deep funding we use a minimum of 100 AGIX, perhaps a relatively small number, which I'm not entirely sure of, but we want to keep it as low barrier as possible to participate, of course. And with the quadratic voting, this is just a calculation thing, I believe. So that would apply after the fact, almost. I see Jan looking like I might.
Yeah, there are a few things. So voting. We should try to avoid that people with an uncanny amount of AGIX, even though we love those people, they will take all the power away from the larger amount, the long tail, so to speak, of people with a smaller amount. We love those very much as well. So that needs to be balanced. And one way of counting votes is just by one AGIX, one vote. An improvement is doing it by quadratic voting, evening out playing field a little bit. That risks wallet splitting, giving the old people again a lot of power. And we try to mitigate that again, or balance that again, by creating reputation scores in deep funding. So people who contribute a lot to the deep funding process by giving a lot of feedback and that kind of thing, they will get extra voting weight. And in our governance round of deep funding, which was similar as this one, as Peter mentioned, we saw that there were two proposals. And one was very, as you mentioned also, was like 80-90% support. Everybody was in support, basically. But there was another one that was quite average. And what actually pushed it to one side was the voting weight that we gave to a number of wallets that were very active on our portal. So that was in action how reputation could actually change an outcome in the vote. So yeah, I think it's the more factors that you have, the more balanced the outcome will be. So only looking at token balance is very one-dimensional. Looking at token balance and wallet reputation is already more sophisticated. Looking at balance, voting reputation, and other contributions is even a more balanced situation. And another upside of that is that it's also much harder to game. The more metrics you put in your loyalty system or reputation system, the harder it will be to game this thing. I have to go to another meeting. I just want to make one last comment on this proposal. It's a proposal, right? It's a suggestion. Should the community think that it is better to use these loyalty rewards just for everybody who was there before the hard fork, that is also perfectly valid, and it's also a fine decision. I have no objections against that. I would still want to have that wallet reputation thing for other purposes. But I'm just positioning it here as an option, also to use as a tool here. But it depends on the bias of the community against how balanced, nuanced do you want to make it, or do you want to keep it really simple? And both are fine. There's no wrong answer there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
In a way, it all comes down to how do you define loyalty? Yeah.
I have to go. Thanks a lot, Peter. Thanks everybody else for your input and your questions. And yeah, looking forward very much how this will unfold. And looking forward to your feedback on my proposal and the other proposals. And hope to see a few more being inspired by this. Thanks a lot.
Have a
See you
good day.
around.
We will be wrapping up more or less. I quickly, looking at the clock, it's simply time to wrap up. But I do want to have a little look at the schedule, because in a way, after 1 hour of discussing, I still feel there's tons of topics to further cover, and the current schedule allows for, or currently has planned, only one additional open meeting. And I mentioned this at the beginning of the call. Thanks to those who joined in the meantime. Thanks for joining. But I do want to quickly go over this just for context. As I pointed out earlier, there's a bit of a lull period between February 13th and February 20th. And this was not by design, but we shifted around the voting portal open times to be in sync with deep funding voting, just so it's in the exact same time slot. And this also allows, theoretically, for keeping the ideation portal open a bit longer. Yeah, looking at the date, it's 26th right now, to close it in 4 days. And then, have this 2 weeks of discussing only the proposals which are on the portal in a way feels a bit limiting. I would like to do a quick temperature check with everybody here on, for example, if people would, what people feel about extending that with 1 week. So the end date of the schedule would not change, but basically the close on January 26th, January 30th, I should say, to extend that by 1 week until February 6th, I imagine.
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea. An extra week for people to throw in proposals.
Yes, I agree.
Thanks a lot for chiming in. Any objections? That's also important. And I think, part of this might also be good to have an additional. I do like the text-based discussions on the portal, but direct face-to-face is it's just better, easier to get things concrete and to discuss. So if it gets extended with a week, which I think we should simply go ahead and do so, then there will also be an additional open call like this one. And I kind of feel that covers most for today for the session. If anybody has something to contribute right now.
Peter, really quick, can you hear me?
Yep, all good.
Okay, great. I don't know if it was mentioned because I missed most of the meeting, but was it mentioned about weighted voting? So for each proposal, instead of voting, just on one proposal, maybe you can do a scale of 1 through 5, like being like you strongly support this proposal, and 1 being like you loosely support this proposal, and that way you get a weighted average for each proposal. Has anybody discussed that?
Wasn't discussed concretely. Practically speaking, it is a functionality of the voting platform, so it can definitely be done. It uses the same voting portal as deep funding, and there you can also rate between 1 and 10, I believe, 0 and 10 even. But yeah, there's a whole range of indicating your preference.
I think it just voting,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry?
I said perfect. I think it just provides more nuanced voting on issues. So yeah.
Yeah, I was considering to have a portion of one of these public calls to also include these type of things. Like right now, for the voting, for example, it can be a whole discussion in itself. Like we're changing an allocation, which right now is based on a hard fork snapshot. So then for this vote to take place, who can vote on this? So far, I've personally approached it as it being an open vote for current token holders. That can be a discussion in itself. Like, should people in the who are part of the hard fork snapshot, should they have additional weight in this vote since it directly concerns their interest?
Yeah, I think so. I think the longer you've held, the more weight you should be able to have in the voting process. Loyalty. I mean, that's what it is. Being there from the beginning is, a metric of loyalty in personal life and in these projects.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that argument very clearly. And these type of decisions are something that I would strongly prefer not to make in a centralized way, but to actually discuss in a setting like this. However, we are running over a bit already, so I don't think we can solve this right now. But I do think that the practical sides of the vote would definitely be good to cover in one of these open sessions. And as Krandana mentions in chat, that can be a proposal in itself.
Maybe just to mention one basic rule should be exchanges should be excluded from rewards and also from voting. I'm not sure if this is already the case.
Yeah, by design it is. We don't have insights in what, like on Etherscan, for example, and I imagine it's identical on Cardano. You can see that an exchange has a wallet with a bunch of tokens, but beyond that, you cannot see. It's not open. So yeah, so far in everything SingularityNET has done, it's always been about holding tokens in a private wallet, also based on the not your keys, not your crypto principle. So I do think that will, unless somebody has strong arguments for it, but I think that's pretty much a given. All right. I think that that wraps it up for today. So would like to thank a lot of you. Thank you all a lot for attending, and looking forward to keep the discussion going, both on the ideation platform and also here on Discord. Thanks a lot.